Hey, what's up, United? My name is Nate. I am from our South Tampa campus, and we are in our first week of our Rivals series. But before we jump into that, let's give it up for our first-time guest across all 6 of our locations. Yes, give it up for him. Hey, if you're first time here, you're probably like, what does he mean 6 places across Tampa Bay? Well, we have 6 Uniteds going on right now with over 1,000 students that are united across Tampa Bay. And so we love getting to do these video messages because it allows us to be in the same thing in the same night together all at once. But like I said, my name is Nate, and something that you should know about me is I'm a dog person, all right? Like, I am a true dog person. Where are my dog people at out there? All right, we see you, yes, dog people. Hey, where are my cat people at? Okay, I'll pray for you guys. But for me, I have a dog, huge dog person, but my dog's name is Indy. Let's show a picture of Indy. Look how cute she is. She just celebrated her first birthday, and that first year of her life, let me tell you, it was a crazy one. You see, when she was a puppy, Indy actually broke her leg. Yep, show a picture of Indy with her leg broken. Look at that. She's sitting under a Christmas tree saying, all I want for Christmas is a new leg. That's all I want. But so sad, but so cute at the same time. And it was a hard process. I mean, it was for months she had a broken leg, and we missed some puppy experiences. We had our own because, you know, it's a very unique time where you have a puppy with a broken leg. But I remember she was about to get out of her cast, right? She was about to get out of her cast, and me and my wife, we were kind of worried, like, you know, is she gonna like have a limp for the rest of her life? Like, is her leg gonna like look a little weird? And it did for a little bit, but is her leg gonna look a little weird? Is she gonna be able to play like other dogs? I remember the first time we took her to the dog park, we were a little nervous, and we're like, all right, let's see what happens. Let's let her out and let's see what happens when she plays with other dogs. And let me tell you right now, Indy is the fastest dog I've ever seen. Like, outruns all of these dogs. Like, no joke, a true underdog story. Once had a broken leg and now is the fastest dog at the dog park, the fastest dog at her daycare. Like, she runs laps around the other dogs. She is a true underdog, literally. You know, and I love that because everyone loves a good underdog story, right? Like, we love a good underdog story. There's so many movies made about an underdog story because it sells. It captures our heart. It captures our attention. And so tonight, we're actually going to be in a message, really the most famous underdog story of all time. The most famous underdog story of all time. And this story, many of you have probably heard of it, right? Many of you probably know it, and if you don't know it, you have at least heard it referenced. And the story is David and Goliath. David and Goliath. And this story is found in the Bible in 1 Samuel chapter 17. And a little backstory before we jump in. You see, what's happening here in this story is that there's this group called the Philistines, and then there's this group called the Israelites, and they are at war during this time. The Philistines were known as enemies of God, and the Israelites were known as people of God. So therefore, they were always at war, they were always clashing, they were always fighting. And so this is where we pick up, and it's taking place in the valley of Elah. You have the Israelites on one side of the valley, and you have the Philistines on the other side of the valley. And so the Philistines decide to send out a soldier to intimidate the Israelites. They decide to send out a soldier to intimidate the Israelites. And so they send out this guy named Goliath. And Goliath is known for 2 things. One, he's known for his size. You see, Goliath is almost 10 feet tall, and he weighs over 600 pounds. And when I say 600 pounds, he's not like this big, like this sumo wrestler or anything. He's like completely shredded, kind of like myself, right? Like just shredded completely. Just kidding. I am not that, as you can see. But the second thing he's known for is he's known for being a soldier. He's known for being a soldier. He's known for, he's not the Philistines' biggest soldier. He is, but he's not just the Philistines' biggest soldier. He's also their best. Like, Goliath is just a complete warrior. And so what the Philistines decide to do is they decide to send Goliath, this huge giant, out into the battle to mock and intimidate the people of Israel. So they send Goliath out into the valley, and look what he does. Look what he says. In 1 Samuel chapter 17, starting with verse 8, it says, Goliath stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, "Why do you come out and line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine? And are you not the servants of Saul? Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he is able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and you will serve us." Then the Philistines said, "This day I defy the armies of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other." On hearing the Philistines' words, Saul and all of the Israelites were dismayed and terrified. And so Saul is out here in the valley, and he's yelling at the people of Israel, and he's mocking them. And even in the Bible, it says he's even mocking God. He's yelling and mocking them and yelling terrible things at them and saying, "Hey, come on, come fight me. I bet you won't. You're scared. You're scared. Look at you." And the Bible says that Goliath did this for 40 straight days, that every single day he would go out in the valley and he would look at the people of Israel, the people of God, and just mock and taunt and intimidate the people of Israel day after day. And the Israelites, they didn't do anything about it. They were dismayed and they were terrified. They trembled with fear because of Goliath. They were afraid. And my question for us tonight is, how many of us are there right now? How many of us are trembling with fear, are terrified because we have a Goliath in our life? You see, in this story, Goliath is this big, scary giant, right? He's this big, scary giant, but I believe that every single one of us, we have Goliaths in our lives. We have giants in our lives. We have something that continues to mock us day after day, something that distracts us from God and his plan for our lives. You see, ours, they don't come in this form of a huge, scary giant, but what they do come in the form of is sometimes anxiety. For some of us, it's comparison. We compare ourselves. We compare ourselves to others. For some of us, we allow self-harm to be our giant. For others, it might be loneliness. It's jealousy. It's a poor self-image. It's the seeking approval of others. It's like Galatians 1:10 says, "For am I seeking the approval of man or am I seeking the approval of God?" Because if I was still seeking the approval of man, then I wouldn't be a servant of Christ. And so we're spending so much time worrying about what other people think about us instead of living our life to approve the one who created us and the one who sent his son to die for us. And we allow it to be a giant in our lives. For others, it's this depression. For others, it's this topic of lust. Man, it's something that just keeps us from having the blessings of God. It keeps us from having good and real and godly relationships because we try to please ourselves through sexual immorality and things that we see on our screen. And it's taunting us day after day, and there's nothing that we can do to beat it. And the last one, man, it's these cheap thrills that we think, you know what? For me, it's gonna make me feel better if I just mask the pain. Man, we all have a Goliath in our life. And I know I said something that really struck a chord with you that you could say, hey, you know what? That's my Goliath. Because these things day after day, they stand in front of us and they mock us. They taunt us. They distract us from God. And just like the Israelites, we let it defeat us. We let it defeat us. But I want to encourage you by saying, hey, your story doesn't stop here. Just like this story in the Bible, it doesn't stop here. The story continues, and many of us know what's about to happen. You see, we love what happens next because an underdog enters the scene. a boy named David. And you see, David isn't your picture of a warrior. David is a 15-year-old boy. Like, who out there, raise your hand if you're a 15-year-old boy. Listen, no offense, but you're not our first choice if a Goliath walks in the doors, all right? Like, to fight him, like, you're not gonna be our first choice. You see, David was definitely not the first choice. You see, David was 15 years old. He was small. He was skinny. He attended to the sheep. He was definitely not your picture of a warrior. But David shows up on scene to not be in the war, but to actually serve the people who were in battle. But David walks on scene and he starts hearing these things that Goliath are saying about the Israelites and saying about God. And David actually becomes offended. And David goes up to these people, and goes up to the Israelites and is like, what are you doing? Like, you're gonna let him talk like that? And no one moved. They were a little embarrassed. They were a little afraid, but no one moved. But look what David does next. In verse 32, it says, David said to Saul, let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant, meaning himself, your servant will go and fight him. Your servant will go and fight him. David steps up. And David says, if there's nobody else, then let it be me. Because I can't stand here and listen to this guy talk bad about our nation and bad about our God. I'll stand up and I will fight. And so David begins to prepare for battle. They bring David some armor. David puts it on and he's like, I can't carry this around. Like, I'm not gonna be any good if you put armor on me. And so they take his armor off him and they send him into battle with no armor on. They send him into battle with no armor to protect him. And when he walks out there, I'm sure you can picture the scene, when he walks out there and walks up to this 10-foot giant, Goliath just starts laughing. He starts laughing and he starts mocking and he starts taunting even more. He's like, seriously, this is the best you got? This is who you sent to fight me? Do you know who I am? But look what David does. And look what David says. In verse 45, it says, David said to the Philistine, you come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day, the Lord will deliver you into my hands. As the Philistine moved closer to attack him, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet him. I love that. It says David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet him. Reaching into his bag, taking out a stone, he slung it and struck the Philistine on the forehead. The stone sank into his forehead and he fell face down on the ground. No matter how many times I read this story, I'll never cease to get so excited for what just happened. It's an underdog story. A 15-year-old boy defeating this huge giant in Goliath. The odds were stacked against him, but David still prevailed because David had God on his side. An underdog story that we all love to hear. You know, I remember for me, I was in 5th grade, right? I was in 5th grade, and there was this kid who was the biggest bully in our school. Like, this kid would go up and make fun of you. This kid would go up and push you into your locker. Like, this kid was just a mean kid. And I remember we went, me and my friends one night to the high school football game. And, you know, we liked watching the high school football game, but really what we were more concerned with was playing football off to the side and acting like we were in the game. And so we were playing football, me and my friends, and this kid walks up. This kid takes our football and punts it and just walks away and starts laughing and making fun of us. And in that moment, man, I was angry. I was so aggravated. And I was like, you know, I'm done being bullied. And so either out of an act of bravery or maybe it was an act of stupidity, I walked up to this kid and I said, hey, we're tired of being bullied by you. We're tired of being bullied by you. So why don't you go away and stop being mean to us? Like, I told this kid off, and I felt so good about myself. And this kid's like, okay. And this kid cocks back and boom, punches me in the face, and I fall down. And you're like, Nate, seriously? Like, one punch knocked you to the ground? Like, hey, listen, in my defense, she was the strongest girl in our grade, all right? Like, she was the strongest girl in our grade, no joke. This girl hit me in the face and knocked me down. And she just kept punching and punching and punching. And I have no idea what this girl does on her weekends. It's either some type of like jiu-jitsu or it's like Mortal Kombat, because I have never been punched that hard in my life. And I was bleeding so bad. I remember my dad, he came and picked me up that night. And I couldn't tell my dad that I just got beat up by a girl. I just couldn't do it. And so my dad's like, what happened to you? I'm like, don't worry, Dad. You should see the other kid. Like, as if I did anything to this other kid who was a bully. Like, I was the one that looked messed up. But, I feel like this is what happens when many of us try to stand up to our Goliaths. That this is what happens when we try to stand up to our giants and face our giants. You see, we're in a battle with depression. We're in a battle with anxiety. We're in a battle with a sin habit. And if we're being honest with ourselves and honest with those around us, listen, we're losing. We're losing this battle. And what we think to ourselves is, well, I just need to fight harder. That I just need to stand up and fight harder. And so what we do is we start fighting harder. And we still lose. We still lose. So why is this? Well, I believe it's because we are trying to be something that we're not. We're trying to be something that we're not. See, we hear this story and we're like, man, you know what? I'm picturing myself as David. That if David can defeat his Goliath, then I can defeat my Goliath. But listen, you're not David. You're not David. I'm not David. If anything, we're a picture of the Israelites. That we're losing our battles to our fears. We're losing our battles to the things that we are struggling with. That we are constantly trying to fight them, but yet we're losing. And I was walking around the mall the other day, and I was looking into the stores, and I saw some shirts on the rack. Shirts with the writing that said, "You are enough." Shirts with the writing that said, "You are strong enough." And listen, I'm all for positivity. Like, I believe that we should be positive. But positivity that points to you as the answer to your problems, it's so dangerous. It is so dangerous. It's a strategy actually used by the enemy. You see, the enemy wants you to believe that your problems are yours to fight, that your problems are yours to figure out, and that if you try really, 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 really hard, that you might win. Listen, stop it. Stop. Stop believing that lie. Listen, you're not going to win. You're not going to win. You will lose. You will lose if you try to fight these fights with your own strength. You will lose if you will try to fight your loneliness, your depression, your anxiety, your sin habits in your own strength. You're going to lose. So what are you saying, Nate? What are you saying? Are you saying that I should just stop fighting? Are you saying that I should just stop trying? Are you saying that I should just give up? No. Listen, don't give up look up. Don't give up, look up. Because if we are a picture of the Israelites, that means Jesus is a picture of David. That Jesus is the one who's going to swoop in and come and fight our battles and win our battles for us. We're not David, but Jesus is. We're not going to win our battles, but Jesus will. We have to understand that Jesus wants to save the day, that he wants to fight our battles, and that when he does, Jesus wins our battles. And what I love about the Bible is that you can read it from the front all the way to the back, and the answer is never you. The answer's always been Jesus. It will always be Jesus. It'll never stop being Jesus. The answer is him, not you. You see, you may not stand a chance against your lust, but your lust doesn't stand a chance against Jesus. You may not stand a chance against your depression, but your depression does not stand a chance against Jesus. You may not stand a chance against your anxiety, but your anxiety, it does not stand a chance against the power and the love of Jesus. It is Jesus who will fight your battles. It will Jesus who will win your battles. Jealousy, loneliness, you don't stand a chance, but they don't stand a chance in the presence of Jesus. Because what I believe is that every time we take a step closer to Jesus, our fear, our anxiety, our depression, our sin habits, they must take a step back. They must take a step back. Jesus is too good. He is too good. And listen, last week we learned that Jesus has already won the war. That there was a separation between me and God. That because of my sin, because of your sin, there was this separation. And so God sent his one and only son, Jesus, down from heaven to earth to live a perfect, sinless life, to then lay down his life for you and I. And then 3 days later, he rose again, defeating all death, defeating all sin, defeating all shame. Jesus won the war. Well, then it's time to surrender our battles over to the one who's already won the war. Like, where do we get off thinking that it's us who's going to win our battles? It's God. It's by the power of Jesus. It's time to surrender our battles over to the God who's already won the war for us. But practically, what does this look like? Like, what does this look like to surrender our battle over to God? To allow Jesus to be the one who fights and wins our wars? Well, you see, God is a God of relationship. God is a God of relationship. So yes, there is an aspect of continuing to build our relationship with him through prayer and reading our Bible. But God also loves it when we have relationships with others who have the same goal as us. And I believe that God wants to use others to help you defeat your giants, defeat your Goliaths, and defeat the rivals that are distracting you from what God has for you. People like your pastor, people like a godly friend, people like a therapist, a united leader, or even maybe your small group. See, God loves using others to help you. And there is no shame in asking for help. Listen, there is no shame in asking for help. If we were supposed to do all of this by ourselves, if we were supposed to do all of this alone, well, then there would have been no reason for Jesus to come and die. But he did, because he knows that we need help. Listen, we all have struggles. We all have something that we're fighting against. And so we're in this together. We're in this together. And right now, we're about to go into a time of reflection. Listen, allow this time to be a time where you get honest with God. God already knows what you're struggling with, but He likes it when you're honest with Him. Be honest with God. A time where you officially surrender your battles to Jesus. Allow this to be a time where you get help. Listen, I love you, United. I love you guys. We are in this together. We're not strong enough to defeat this alone, but God through us all, man, these things don't stand a chance. Don't give up. Look up.